And this is what it looked like before, so I really replaced everything in here. Brought it into Blender. I had to do a 3D track. We don't need the bad guys to spell out their plans or whatever. Like, we know. Hey everybody, I'm Kai Patterson, and I edited the Ahsoka TV series into a feature-length movie. And I am going to do kind of like a breakdown from start to finish about the whole process, what I did, what I changed. Obviously, I changed a lot. There's let's actually check this out. All of the like content of the series is like 5 hours, 17 minutes, and 26 seconds, roughly. My movie is 2 hours and 37 minutes. So I ended up cutting a lot out. So I'm going to kind of go through it, from the beginning all the way to the end of everything that I did. I definitely want to say that you should watch the movie and the series before you watch this breakdown video. I know that there are some people that are not going to care and they're going to watch this without watching it anyways, but I think you would really enjoy the movie, so I would definitely watch that first. With that out of the way, let's get into my movie. So mine starts off a disclaimer, I'm not making money or anything. Then we have the Lucasfilm logo, as always. The classic, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So we start here with the classic fanfare, and I always think that this fanfare kind of like really gets you in the mood for a Star Wars movie. I know it does for me, so that's what I wanted to do with this movie. And I did it for my Obi-Wan movie as well. But I write these myself. I did have some help from my fiance. I asked her, the best wording and stuff for this. I sent it to someone through my Discord who was a moderator on my Discord server for the Patterson Cut, which you should definitely go join. Link is in the description. Her name is Erin, and she helped. There was a part in here, this security transport section right here. I guess I misspelled that. I don't know how I missed that. I said like security or something. I don't remember, but I was very glad that was caught because that would have been super embarrassing if I released that. If you don't remember how the show started beforehand was this kind of red opening crawl, which honestly I thought was kind of cool. But again, because I was transitioning into a movie, we all are very much aware of how, Star Wars starts. And so I always like to incorporate those into my movies because I think it's more of a seamless Star Wars experience. I really didn't have a problem with this. I thought it was cool the way it was done. But I was, again, trying to get back to the movie roots. I completely rewrote the opening crawl for the movie. I took inspiration from the one in the show, but I rewrote it. In my movie, I take out like a whole section of kind of the early episodes of the show, which is, getting the star map. In my movie, basically, we already have the star map. So I explain that here in the opening crawl. After retrieving a mysterious star map, the prisoner's fierce mercenaries move to extract her before trial in the New Republic. That's a huge thing. That's different in my movie versus the show. I cut out the whole part where Ahsoka is getting the star map and Sabine has to open it and then she loses it to Shin and then there's that whole battle. That's all taken out in mine. It originally was in my first cut of this film. I did a cut that was 3 hours long. No one except for me and my fiance have watched that version of it. But as I was watching that, I just knew there's this kind of weird flow, yes, it was a 3 hour movie, but the flow was kind of disrupted by that early plot. And I knew that I could get it down to like a real 2.5 hour feature length movie if I just kind of cut that whole subplot out. So I put it in this quick opening crawl. Another thing that I specifically wanted to make sure that I didn't do was in this opening crawl from the show, it talks about Grand Admiral Thrawn. And I know that is good, especially if you haven't watched anything like, Rebels or anything like that. But for the movie, I specifically wanted you as the audience to learn about Thrawn kind of as our characters in the movie do. So I specifically did not mention Grand Admiral Thrawn in my opening crawl at all. I think it's pretty self-explanatory as we go through the movie how the characters think about Thrawn and how they feel, what's going on with him, and why he's so important to the story. I think that comes in as we watch, so you don't really need it in the opening crawl. The opening crawl usually is just to kind of introduce the main plot going into kind of the first scene. So I think that I accomplished that here. Anyways, wow, we're already so far into this and we haven't even got past the opening crawl. Great. So next we go into my movie here, which is the same how it opens in the Ahsoka show. I just like truncated some stuff just for timing purposes. I'm kind of going to go over the major things. If I went through like literally every single thing that I cut out or changed, this would take many, many hours. You know, I'll show you kind of the things that I really like worked on and made sure, and that I am proud of and want you guys to know. So in my movie, this is how this scene goes.
Jakris, get RD3 to scan these imposters for identification.
Allow me to show you our identification.
The reason why I really like it like this is because Shin's moment, we get a Shin moment later on here. This is like Shin's close-up moment, right? She's kind of the big baddie right here coming in. So we don't need that moment from her in the beginning because this is kind of almost a jump scare, you know? It's that's what it's kind of meant to be. So in the show, they talk between each other for a little bit longer. I cut out some of the fluff of the conversation. I don't think that there's a scene that I didn't like chop up in some little way just to kind of increase the pacing. So in the show, this is how it goes.
Allow me to show you our identification.
I get it. You know, movies have those moments where you kind of see the bad guy. But to me, it just kind of like, it was a little slow, first of all, and also like unrealistic that she would catch them off guard here. Like she's sitting here for like, you know, good 3 or 4 seconds. People would have started shooting, you know? She doesn't really, you know, I know this is like to give her a good close-up, but like I said, we already see that close-up moment later, and I think that one is more powerful anyways. So this one, I just cut out, and we have this.
To show you our identification.
Which I just think, it's going to be a recurring theme, but I think that quicker pace lends itself well to a moment like this, especially when she's supposed to catch them off guard. Oh, I mean, this one I kind of like this cut. I mean, come on. Here, I'll see what the original cut was. I honestly don't remember what the original cut is. Yeah, so we see her. We see her face, and then it goes into this hallway, and then we get to this part. But I don't know. I think it was more powerful to cut on the actual slice and then go into this, and you know the brightness of the frame really like hides that cut well, and I don't know. I like it, so that's why I called it out here. Next big thing is when they get Morrigan, she starts talking and she kind of talks about like, oh, you know, I guess we can see it in the show. So she stands up here and then he uses the Force, opens that up.
Balin, you are true to your word.
She starts talking.
And well paid for it.
They have a little conversation about it. Fine, whatever. But in the movie, we don't need that. We can just get
The Jedi.
straight to the point. So I had to use VFX here to make her mouth so she doesn't say anything. So here's the original. She starts talking, and then here's my version. I, just kind of used VFX to put a frame of her mouth that wasn't moving on top of the stuff that, when she starts talking. And so you can kind of see here. Yeah. Oh, also, it's obvious to tell when I'm going back and forth between the frames here that my movie, I completely did the color grading. I brightened up a lot of stuff, and I added a little bit more saturation to everything. I just thought that there's this new issue in a lot of content that's coming out where they're making it very gray for some reason, kind of low saturation and low contrast. And I personally don't like that look. So I wanted to pump in a little bit more contrast and saturation to my version. And you'll see that anytime I kind of flip back and forth between stuff from the original show and then stuff that I did, you'll see my color correction change the frame. So the original show looks like this, pretty dark, not a lot of contrast. So brought back that contrast, brightened it up a bit, more saturation. I like it personally, but I know some people are like, oh, maybe it oversaturated it, but again, these movies are for me, and that's what I like. So then we just go straight into them landing on Seatos. I added the lightning in here. So here's the original. You can see right there. Original. He looks up and he sees our friend here up there, the star whale, Purgle. In my version, we have some lightning up here, and then some more lightning to kind of get your eye up to check this out. Plus, I think that the lightning gives a little bit more of a spooky atmosphere. And then this shot, I also changed because we're cutting here. Again, I cut out a lot of the dialogue just because I was like, we just didn't need it. We just want to move forward. And I also think, to me, my personal philosophy on scripts or filmmaking or anything like that is less is more, especially with the script. I want the actor's performance to tell the story, and I think that dialogue comes secondary, personally, the way I like to write things. So I cut a lot of unnecessary dialogue out if you can kind of get that. You can get what they're saying or feeling just through their performance and their face, show, don't tell. So I had to make a cut here to end this little moment where Shin is walking away. So he's still looking up at the sky here. And I cut to this. This is the original. So Balin was actually looking down at the star map here in this shot that I cut to. So I used VFX to, make him look up and then look down, just so this would cut nicely together here. So he's looking up, but if I didn't do that, it's not super noticeable other than the color correction here. But he is looking down. So just, it's the little things, it's the details. Then we move into Ahsoka being introduced, and I like to kind of keep a face reveal. So that's why I have just the back of her head here as she's coming in. And then I don't reveal her face until she and Hera meet up. So basically at this point in the story, we have Balin, who has taken Morrigan out of the prisoner transport, and now they're kind of getting things together. They already have the star map. So now we're getting into, Hera's called Ahsoka now, and she's coming in to kind of see what's going on. and we kind of cut out the whole thing with Ahsoka getting the star map with the HK-87 droids and all that stuff. So one of the biggest differences in this scene is that Ahsoka, she no longer has this star map because the bad guys have it. So I had to cut around, anytime they were holding this, I had to do VFX to cut it out.
I started hearing whispers of his return, which led me to Morrigan.
Yeah, so I took that line actually and I put that in a different spot here. So in mine, this is how things go.
I started hearing whispers of his return, which led me to Morrigan.
If Thrawn survived, does that mean Ezra?
So this one I'm pretty proud of. Hera in this, she's looking down at the star map in the original shot. I also zoomed way in because she is holding the star map as well.
I started
So
hearing
in
whispers
this
of his return, which led me to Morrigan.
original shot, she's looking down at the star map for so long. It was just kind of awkward to cut to, or to have that, shot where it kind of pans over and rack focuses to Hera and she is like looking down. And in this scene, the way I have it in the movie, she's not supposed to have the star map because the bad guys have it. I added her eyes being open, and I think it kind of adds a little bit of flair to the performance as well here.
I started hearing whispers of his return, which led me to Morrigan.
If Thrawn survived,
And this is the original.
I started hearing whispers of his return, which led me to Morrigan.
if Thrawn
I'll give that another go for you.
I started hearing whispers of his return, which led me to Morrigan.
if Thrawn survived, does that mean Ezra?
You probably noticed in my movie that there were a couple times when Huyang said things that he didn't say in the show. Those were all performed by me. Actually, anytime that there is any kind of like line that wasn't in the show, it's performed by me with like speech-to-speech voice cloning. So I performed it, and then I used 11 Labs to, voice clone, whether it's Ahsoka or Huyang or Sabine a couple times. I did the performance myself, had to get the accents correct and everything and the cadence. And then I overlaid the clone's voice on top of that. And it's not perfect, but it's what, I kind of needed to do in order to change some of the plot points around. Also, real quick aside, my ethical standard for, voice cloning or using AI stuff in general, I think personally for something like a fan edit, and something that's not making any money, it's a hobby project, it's like literally everything was done by me. I did the visual effects, I edited new music, the whole process is done by one person. And for a hobby project like this, I'm not hiring other artists to come in and do stuff. It's a project done by myself, for myself, basically. And then I share it with other people who would like to watch it. But basically what I'm trying to say is that I don't make any money from this or anything like that. I think that makes it okay to use these kind of AI tools as hobby projects and not as replacements for professional performances or artwork or anything like that. These are hobby projects, not making money. So that's my opinion on kind of the AI thing. I am a filmmaker, so I write scripts, I direct, I do short films, gearing up for feature films soon and stuff. So I'm not planning on using AI ever in my career to replace people that I would normally hire. I think that AI is a great tool, and I'm very interested to see how it can kind of help the process of stuff. Just kind of like how, there was practical puppets and practical effects that happened, and even Star Wars had this moment too, and especially with Jurassic Park, where they went from, you know, having those practical effects to now digital effects. And I view this kind of like AI tech, you know, as kind of the next stepping stone of technology in the film industry and in arts and stuff. And I definitely think that we need some regulations on it because I think that there are some very scary things that are happening in terms of like unethical data sets and everything like that, stealing art, that kind of stuff. Again, that's a whole different topic we could talk about a lot, but I just wanted to address that. You know, these are hobby projects, and that's why I personally feel that it is okay to use these AI tools. I'm not claiming that this was the original or anything like that. I know that there are still probably people that will disagree, and that's okay. I would love to hear your thoughts about it in the comments, but that is my personal opinion on the matter at the moment. It could always change. But yeah, anyways, that being said, here in this moment, we have Huyang say a new line of dialogue that he didn't say in the show, but this was to kind of gear up for the next part of the movie and use it as a kind of an exposition moment. So here we go.
Know where to look.
We were on our way to Corellia to investigate one of Lady Morgan's old facilities. My intel suggests she has found an ancient star map with extragalactic calculations. It is very troubling.
It's never a straight line with you Jedi, is it?
So I gotta say, David Tennant's accent is pretty wild. It's very, very specific, and it was really hard for me to get. I also heard that he's a Scottish actor who's doing a British accent. So I was an American person doing a British accent from a Scottish person doing a British accent. So it was all over the place, but you know, I think it works for the purposes that I needed it to. I'm not trying to make it like absolutely perfect. It's just a fan edit. I just needed to move from one thing to the next. I do pride myself in the quality of my fan edits. But if I was going for absolute perfection, I would never end up releasing these things. And at the end of the day, you know, I don't want to be working on these things forever. I want to share them, and I want them, you know, to be out in the world. I realize that I need to like move forward with it. Yeah, I think this is another one where like in the original shot, yeah, I zoomed in a lot and I had to kind of get rid of her holding the star map here. I also like definitely cut up a lot of their conversation here. There were some unnecessary bits and stuff. I've watched it so many times, like in my movie form, that there's a lot of stuff I kind of forget like was even in the show. So if there's anything specific that like I cut out that I don't mention in these videos, let me know in the comments and I'll explain why I cut it. But if I don't remember it, it's probably because I was like, it wasn't necessary. So in this part, I did cut out some things that I was not really a fan of. We can see in the original show.
Commander Sabine Wren. Sabine Wren. Wait, Commander. Allow me to set it back up. We'll stay with us. Where's the...
Yeah, so this whole thing took a long time. Then he asks about security, and then he sighs and leaves. And then we see this part with Sabine on her speeder and everything. It's cool. It's a cool sequence, you know, I'm not going to lie. It's just also, I don't know, it just didn't really do it for me personally. So in my version, this is how the scene plays out.
Sabine Wren.
Where is she?
I don't know. She was just here.
Where did she go?
I don't know where she went.
So easy peasy. We figured out that Sabine somehow left, and she, that's really all we needed from that scene. We needed the information about Ezra being a commander, and that we've defeated the Empire and everything, and that Sabine, she's rogue, she's doing her own thing. So we could just cut right from that to her in here. And this was also kind of a late addition. Originally, I cut from here, like seeing her, seeing where she lives, and I cut right to her watching the message from Ezra. And I like it that way. I think it works well. I was talking to Aaron again from my Discord, and I think the pacing was moving pretty quick, and she pointed out that maybe we need a little bit more time with Sabine, even if it's just some small moments. So I really wanted to save her face reveal. I don't know why. I just think it's like interesting to, save the face reveal for your character, like before you see it, for like a very specific moment. And I really wanted to save her face reveal here when she is looking at, this is the first time we see Sabine's full face here. And I just really liked her emotion here. I think it really tells the whole story of how she feels about this situation. So, in order to add some extra stuff just for like world building and stuff, I had to kind of, zoom in quite a bit here. You'll see, here's the original. You see her full face, which is fine. Again, I just personally, I wanted to save that reveal. So I cut, or I zoomed in anytime you really see her face. And I think that gives it this nice kind of like, like, oh, you're waiting to see her face reveal. It's something that you're like, wait, like, I want to see. I don't know why. Yeah, I just think it's a more interesting choice to save that face reveal. Also, I think somebody said something about like this was an abrupt cut, and that's kind of the point of this cut. Cuts like these, they're called either a J cut or an L cut. This is a J cut where like the audio starts before the next cut, so it's that helps you kind of like be able to skip time without it being a super abrupt cut. So that's what I did in these, where I'm kind of skipping time in these moments. And then we get this conversation. I wanted to cut out specifically the line about them, being like family. I think it's kind of more being hinted in the series that there's kind of a love connection between them. Kind of later on, we see that after they meet, Sabine has a hickey on her neck, and I don't know. It's just a theory, but I do like it. I think that it makes a lot of sense to kind of have them romantically involved. I will be honest here. I didn't watch all of Rebels. I watched like the first couple seasons. It was a little too kiddie for me. I also think that I had a bad taste in my mouth from like Disney buying Lucasfilm and then canceling Clone Wars, because I like really loved Clone Wars. So I was kind of like mad at Rebels because of that. So I never finished Rebels. I've seen tons of clips here and there and everything. I know I have to watch it at some point. So I'm not quite sure how their dynamic was in the show, but for this movie, to me, it felt like it was hinting that they were like romantically involved. So this line about them being like family, or she was a sister to him, I wanted to cut that out. And then we go straight to now Morrigan has landed on Seatos. She's, gotten out of her prisoner garb and she's back with her crew. And in this shot, she walks up and she says, show me what you found. I basically cut that line because it was unnecessary. We were already going to see what they found. And plus, in this, you can see Balin, motions with his hand. Oh, yes, look this way. So in the original, though...
Show me what you found.
It's just like an awkward moment. She looks at him and is like, show me what you found, and continues walking, it just was unnecessary. So I cut that moment. Also, you can probably see the original is much more washed out and dark, and it's got kind of this blue cast over it. So specifically for the Seatos scenes, I worked hard on the color grading here because it just was really off-putting to me. So you can see my differences here. But yeah, so she no longer says, show me what you found in my version. Just some VFX magic. Again, I cut out a, good chunk of conversation in this moment. Just things that didn't need to be there. And then, because of that Huyang line that I put in, or that they knew of a map and that I had extra galactic calculations, all that stuff, the line that I added, then we can move into the Corellia sequence. I can't even really remember the exact sequence in the show, but I think it's so Sabine and Ahsoka have already met up in the show at this point, and then Sabine has the map, and then she's stabbed, and then, they go to Corellia to investigate the Lady Morrigan stuff. But in my version, they were kind of already on their way to Corellia, and Hera, intervenes basically and is like, you gotta come this way. And then they talk about, Ezra and all that stuff. We saw that scene. So now, Hera and Sabine go to Corellia. I cut out some of this early stuff in the episode. I think, there's a conversation with Min. I was just I'm going to be honest, I really do not remember what happens in this sequence, and I think that kind of shows that it's didn't need to be there. At some point, I decided it wasn't worth being in there, and I still don't remember what even happened. So then I just cut right into the conversation.
This was one of Morrigan's facilities. She supplied raw materials used in the construction of hyperdrive generators for Imperial-class Star Destroyers.
So a lot of this, I believe I kept pretty similar until we get to kind of inside the facilities. In the movie, obviously we're not going to be cutting back and forth between the hospital, because in my movie, Sabine is never in the hospital. There's no stab wound or anything like that, which I was happy to avoid, because too many people in Star Wars are being stabbed with no consequences.
Profits generated from a single Star Destroyer are enough to fund a variety of New Republic reconstruction programs, among other things.
Other things like?
Well, our board and primary investors have first look at all unique hardware, its price point and distribution.
So that whole kind of section about the investors and stuff, it's more, kind of unnecessary Star Wars politics. So in my version, we just go straight to the conversation about the SSD.
We are able to find a use for everything in many different sectors. Profits generated from a single Star Destroyer are enough to fund a variety of New Republic reconstruction programs, among other things.
Is that a hyperdrive core?
Yes. Refurbished from an SSD ready for its new life serving the Republic. This facility has produced 9 of these new models.
The New Republic Defense Fleet isn't building anything that big. What class of starship are they for?
Let's see. Oh, there it is. Classified.
I'm a general. Nothing's classified to me.
I'm sorry. I cannot unseal the document without authorization.
Well, then I'm authorizing it.
Yeah, so this, again, this is my movie, and I think that this kind of back and forth between Min and Hera is much better in this interaction. In the other one, there's just like a little too much of like the, I don't know. It just like, here, I'll show you from the show what it was.
I'm sorry. I cannot unseal the document without authorization.
Well, then I'm authorizing it.
Oh, I'm not sure you can.
Want to bet?
Yeah, so that part I cut out though, like, I'm not sure you can. Well, you want to bet? That part, I just felt like I don't think we needed that part. And again, I was trying to cut things, I'm trying to make, 6 hours of content into 2.5 hours. So anywhere that I could cut, that's what I was doing. This is the show.
C1, can you come over here, please? Perhaps you can help with the protocol here?
What other types of droids do you have in operation here?
Standard protocol types, as well as CCLs, IW-37s, HV-7s, and other load lifters. Why do you ask?
No HK class?
Assassin droid. I should think not.
Okay, so in the show, Ahsoka has had her run-in with the HK droids when she was finding the star map, but obviously that doesn't happen in my movie. I had thought about this before, that in my version she doesn't have a run-in with the HK class droid. I couldn't remember if she had already experienced the HK droids in Mandalorian Season 2 when she captures Morgan Elsbeth. I couldn't remember if those were kind of around. I think she did have, I'm pretty sure they were in that. But anyways, still for this movie, because we haven't been introduced to an HK class droid, I did have to, figure out a different way. So instead of Ahsoka asking about it, we have to have the droid talk about it. And this was something that also, like, I was okay with kind of flubbing and being like, oh, I'm sure she came in contact with an HK class droid at some point. And then I was showing it to Aaron from my Discord, and I wanted kind of an outside opinion on the whole thing. And this is one of those points where she was like, I don't think it quite makes sense. And I was like, I thought it was kind of just in my head, and honestly, I was avoiding more work. But then, I spent another kind of half day on like refiguring out this scene and what the droid could say, and performing for the droid, and then doing a like female voice overlay on top of my performance. So this is how it goes in my movie now, with the new droid and the new lines.
C1, can you come over here, please? Perhaps you can help with the protocol here?
Yes, I see. The document is classified from our Caladan account authorized by an HK-87.
Assassin droid. I should think not.
I am not mistaken. An HK-class droid recently prevented me from completing an inventory check on an outgoing transport.
Why didn't you log a report?
I did, sir. You told me not to bother you while you were conducting the tour of the facility.
Where is this droid now?
I believe it is departing on that transport.
Yeah, and so I'm glad that I did eventually end up changing this, because I do think that the flow of the scene is much better, and there's also more urgency to it. Also in the show, when Ahsoka asks the droid like how long ago this was and everything, she was like, oh, it's 5 rotations ago.
No, I'm sorry.
I have seen such a droid. I catalog inventory on arriving transports. An HK-class droid recently prevented me from completing this task.
When was this?
5 rotations ago.
Why didn't you log a report?
The droid carried a high-level security clearance. I could not object.
Where is this droid now?
I believe it is departing on that transport.
And in my version, I like the idea that like this is all happening like on top of each other. So while they were out doing the facility check with Min, the HK class droid was in contact with the protocol droid here, C1. It's happening right now.
Why didn't you log a report?
I did, sir. You told me not to bother you while you were conducting the tour of the facility.
Where is this droid now?
I believe it is departing on that transport.
I think that it works better, and especially for my movie, since, you know, Ahsoka in the movie hasn't really seen any HK class droids, it just like sets that up. So next we get to the fight. During this fight scene, I did, and honestly during pretty much every fight scene in this movie, I did some speed ramps in particular places just to quicken the pace of the fights. I also did a lot for the color correction here. Here's the original. So it's just this very gray color scheme. And I brought back a lot of the saturation in her face especially, and some more contrast. So yeah. So I remember this sequence in particular I was very proud of in my version, because I feel like the pace is really great for this fight. You know, they kind of like the battle here. It just like makes Ahsoka look really cool, and the fight is fast, but you still get kind of all the little moments. And then this is what it was in a show. But did you notice that there was some of those like very like, you know, movie moments or TV moments where the character like looks at the camera or towards the camera for an extended period of time, and it's supposed to like get cool points for the character or something. But to me, it's like it like takes me out of the fight when we have those moments, especially when it's supposed to be quick. So you'll see like a moment like this. Having these two kind of go in and like, you know, try to push into her. And then you have this moment kind of where she looks at the camera and then gets out of it. And then that kick, I feel like was so slow. Slow kick, slow like movement out of it. And then we have way too much time here. And then this moment too, you know, she's just like staring at the camera or towards the camera, and then we move. And it's like all that stuff just like stops us in our tracks with the flow of the fight. So again, this is my version. So again, we didn't need those moments with Ahsoka. We didn't need, you know, to just sit there in the middle of a fight and have like a little facial expression kind of thing. It's just like, I don't know, that for me really takes me out of a fight. And so I just really like, I like going through each of the fights and kind of like, you know, removing those little tiny moments that, you know, just elongate things unnecessarily. And then just like continue to focus on the flow and how things move along. I think that especially during a fight, you want the flow to like just keep going. And it's good to have little moments that kind of take you out of the flow. But the moments I think that they chose were just a little unrealistic, or, you know, it definitely felt like, hey, we're doing that thing, you know, you get to see your character say like, hey, look at me, look what I'm doing. And I just felt like it was unnecessary here. Also, I'm pretty sure, I can't really remember, but I'm pretty sure I cut a good amount of like the bickering between Chopper and Hera. Like, I think it's fun, and I left as much as, you know, was necessary to get the point across of what's going on in the scene. But like too much bickering during stuff like this sometimes can get like annoying. and also just like doesn't move the story forward. So that's that. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, this is another one of those shots I'm pretty sure that I like. Yeah. Just brighten up the image and give her more saturation in her face and just more contrast overall in the shot. I feel like really makes it pop. Yeah, like you can really see it here in this shot.
So what did you find?
Yeah, so now in my movie, she gets on her ship and now she's talking to Huyang. And also, I am very much aware that me rearranging this scene does make it a tad confusing because it looks like she came in alone. Huyang isn't there originally when they fly into Corellia. I can easily explain that like Huyang is doing his lightsaber analysis in the back. He's not like co-piloting with her. She's just doing it while he's doing stuff in the back. But obviously I can't explain away why she wouldn't call for Huyang, while she's having this battle. She tells Hera to go get the ghost. They could have told Huyang to also help with the pursuit. I get that. That's just one of those things that like I really can't do much about, but unfortunately the like flow works so much better story-wise for it to be this way. So like, yes, technically that is a mistake. I could argue a few things that like, that Ahsoka is so in the moment that she kind of forgets that Huyang is available or whatever. I could argue that, but really it's just that like for the story to flow better, there are going to be a couple things, especially since it's a fan edit. There are going to be a couple things that like I can't really change. And this was one of those moments. I think if you're like really, really like thinking about it, you could be like, oh wait a second, he was there the whole time. Like that's kind of strange. But also I feel like the way the sequence of events works out, you're not really thinking about that. It's not like a huge like, wait a second, like that ruined my whole experience. So for me, it's like, that was a necessary mistake or a necessary thing that I could live with. And I would be okay with people pointing out because I'm like, yeah, it's true. Yeah, Huyang should have been in the fight a little bit since he was available. But, I think this works. He was busy doing his lightsaber analysis. I think it's fine. Yeah, so in the show, they have just met up, Ahsoka and Sabine, and she tells her about the star map and everything and that they need to open it. And then Huyang comes out and is like, hey, I have an update. Sabine is like, oh, can I take this? Yeah. They're already, like, Sabine is essentially in the other room when this scene happens. And then so when Huyang says,
they will be formidable adversaries for you alone. Of course, you may not be alone for much longer.
Maybe.
So in the show, obviously Huyang is referencing that we just got to Lothal and we have Sabine with us, and so she might stick around. That's what Huyang is referencing. Though in the movie, they haven't met up with Sabine yet. So with that line, it's now kind of taken a new meaning. Where is Ahsoka still even thinking about like going out to reach out to Sabine? And ultimately, she does decide to do that. So I think it's fun. It's fun that like rearranging that scene kind of gave it a new meaning now. So I've now kind of changed this scene. In the original, Sabine is kind of taking, I think, like more of an afternoon nap. You can see here that the window is giving off kind of a warmer light. Actually, everything in the scene is a lot warmer. So I changed the temperature and changed that. So it looks more bluish. So this, to me, is kind of more the middle of the night.
Ezra. Sabine.
So, as I was editing this, I decided that I would repurpose this kind of holographic thing in Sabine's room as a message device. So in the show, this beeps and it's really Ahsoka arriving on Lothal. But I repurposed it so now this is beeping to kind of signify that a message has been received. So in the show, she is trying to figure out the star map with this. And I replaced it so that now it's a message from Ahsoka.
I hope this message finds you well. I know my training wasn't easy. There's nothing easy about being a Jedi.
And again, this kind of speech from Ahsoka is kind of like 50-50 lines from the show and then me performing Ahsoka's lines and then doing a voice cloner overlay on top of that. Ahsoka was probably one of the easiest to mimic in terms of like the cadence that she talks in and everything, but it was still fun to try to kind of imitate the way she says things.
We didn't quite finish your lessons, but I could really use your help, Sabine. I think I know how to find Ezra.
So I knew that this was a powerful moment that I wanted to emphasize. In the original show, she comes to Sabine and she tells her that in person. And I really like that moment. Obviously I wish that could have been in person, but obviously for this fan edit, it didn't really make sense.
I think I know how to find Ezra.
So I basically took like her head from this shot and then flipped it, grabbed a shot from later in the World Between Worlds for her body and pasted her head on top of the World Between Worlds body and, cut her out of the frame and everything. So now we get this.
I think I know how to find Ezra, but I must warn you, this isn't just a rescue mission.
And then her lips don't really line up perfectly here because, again, this is another scene from World Between Worlds that I just kind of cut out and put here, and her lips line up enough with the lines that I was like, sure. And plus, it's a hologram message, so it's not going to be perfect. Sometimes there's audio sync slippage issues anyways, so I wasn't too worried about that.
May the Force be with you.
Obviously, this is what the original scene was. She's just looking down at the map as she's kind of figured out how to open it. But I added in Ahsoka. Again, this is another shot from World Between Worlds. I found that was really great to use from because there were multiple angles of her, and it was perfect for what I needed. And then this is an edit that a few people have commented on and have, said it was too abrupt. I think I get it. I think that the music is supposed to be the thing that makes it less abrupt. But again, just with the way that the story was moving and flowing forward, I didn't feel like it was too abrupt of a edit. But, that is one of the criticisms I've been getting, and sure, I definitely can see where it's coming from. I still think that the cut works, but I think everybody has their own taste on this kind of stuff.
I think I'm going on a trip.
It is like, I get it. It's a totally different tone, and so I think that's probably why the cut feels more abrupt. I'm sure I could have, added in another scene in here or something to kind of like, make that not so abrupt. I really liked the kind of crescendo that the music has. And kind of showing her new state of mind now that she's getting ready to take on this mission. So that's my opinion on that. I definitely understand the criticism though. So this, I didn't actually change any of this really, just up until we get to when they meet each other. And the way that they interact in the show honestly wasn't horrible.
Nice haircut.
It's more me.
I think that that works for the show because, well, first of all, I don't love this.
Nice haircut.
I think her face is a little like annoyed at Sabine for some reason. So performance-wise, I don't love this as kind of their first interaction in the whole movie.
I have just received a
So I like this because, first of all, the first time we see Ahsoka's face, she's smiling at Sabine. So I think that already gives it a nice feeling of approval, you know. And then they're interrupted by Huyang. So I know it's a short moment, but I think that it really feels nice. And then we get into them building the Eye of Sion. Yeah, I really I wanted to punch up the colors here. And now we get into kind of this new training session that I created for the movie. So in the show, there's like these great moments between Huyang and Sabine when they're in the hospital. And it was obviously something that I had to cut because Sabine's never in the hospital, but some of that dialogue I really did like between the two of them.
I see you still have your lightsaber.
Ezra's lightsaber.
True, he constructed it, and by all accounts it served him well. Then he passed it on to you. You have since made your own modifications. So it is now your lightsaber.
For all the good it did me. I can't train if Ahsoka doesn't want to teach me.
That is an excuse.
Yeah, so this whole like kind of back and forth about the relationship between Sabine and Ahsoka, I really cut back on. I think it's already enough that kind of this maybe abandonment issue where, you know, we don't know the specifics of it, but for some reason they never finished the training, whether that was Ahsoka being busy or canceling it or not trusting in Sabine or something. That's not really in my movie, and it's not super in the show either. We needed to talk about the lightsaber because at this point, if I cut out this kind of section where they're talking about the lightsaber, as an audience member, you don't really have context for her lightsaber and what it means to her. So luckily, with Huyang being a robot, I was able to, you know, take some of his lines from this scene and move it to a different scene, since we don't have any issues with his lips moving or anything. And then I also added some lines for Sabine where I've like cut away, or she says the lines and we're not looking at her so that, you know, we don't see it, but they are lines from this section of the show. And in the movie, I changed her katana, so you can see here. I changed the katana to a lightsaber here, just in this first section where she's training. You're probably wondering how I did this. I basically took a 3D model of, I created a 3D model of Ezra's lightsaber, brought it into Blender. I had to do like, you know, a 3D track of all this environment to, especially for the movement of the camera coming in. And then in order to get this glare from the lightsaber on the floor, it's just a material that I used in Blender that gave a nice reflection like these from Huyang. You can see these are reflected in the bottom here. So I wanted to put that in there as well, just to really sell the shot. So you can see. Yeah, so like these, man, it took me so long because I kind of like frame by frame had to like move the lightsaber here in 3D space so that it would kind of float and then I could later composite it into her hands here. This whole sequence took me a long time. I think it was like a week or two to finish all this stuff. Like this one was particularly difficult because you can see here, you know, I had to add this glow off of her arm, you know, because that's how, and on her hair too, and here, because that's how light would kind of illuminate those areas. So in the original, I also zoomed in too, but in the original, you can see here, you know, there's no light spill on her arm or anything. And I also had to like remove all the background too in those areas, because the katana blade is thicker than a lightsaber blade. But here's the original shot.
Well?
Change it to this.
Well?
Not bad, but not good.
It's been a while.
And like, you know, shots like this were hard too, because
It's been a while.
I had to completely replace the katana blade, or, you know, with Ezra's lightsaber here. So you can see, there it is. Yeah, so that was quite difficult.
Good.
It's been a while.
I see you still have your lightsaber.
So that line is a line that I, again, performed as Ahsoka and then overlaid the AI voice cloner on top. But in the actual show, she says, "I see you still remember the basics," or something like that. And it was very lucky that the line that I, you know, replaced it with, "I see you still have your lightsaber," works pretty well with her mouth movements. Plus, we're kind of focused on Huyang at this point, and Ahsoka's line just kind of happens off to the side, so we're not fully looking at her, but even if you do look at her, it's not too noticeable.
It's been a while.
I see you still have your lightsaber.
Ezra's lightsaber.
Yeah, so that Ezra's lightsaber line is from the hospital scene.
True, he constructed it, and then he passed it on to you. So it is now your lightsaber. The past is the past. Move forward.
Thank you, Huyang.
Yes. Thank you, Huyang.
In this section in the show, this is how it goes down.
I see you still remember the basics.
Enough to get by?
Barely.
Huyang, let's try something else. How about Zatoichi?
Oh no. I'm not certain Lady Ren is ready for that technique.
Thank you, Huyang.
Yes. Thank you, Huyang.
Your skill with a weapon comes from your mentor.
So that line from Huyang, I actually moved to later in the scene. So this, I think, gives context for how Sabine feels about the lightsaber and why she still has it, and then also kind of this like little annoying banter that Huyang and Sabine have, which I kept in because later on I also added in another line from the hospital scene where she says, "I forgot how annoying you are."
Your skill with a weapon comes from your Mandalorian upbringing.
So this is another one of those shots that was very difficult to do because, as you can see here, I had to replace that katana again.
It's from your Mandalorian upbringing. That's something you'll have to discover. How about Zatoichi?
Oh no. I'm not certain Lady Ren is ready for that technique.
Yep, so that's where I put that Zatoichi line. Also, you'll see I took the very first frame of the shot and then I replaced obviously the katana, but I also like used the puppet pin tool in After Effects to kind of like move her chest up and down so that it looks like she's like heavily breathing during this or after this training session. And I didn't want her to say this next line because it didn't really fit with the flow of the conversation.
How about Zatoichi?
Here's what it was in the show.
That's something you'll have to discover.
Well, I discovered that according to Huyang, I'm the worst candidate to be a Jedi out of every Jedi he's ever known.
You told her that?
It's true.
It doesn't matter.
I think it does.
Agreed.
Here, put this on.
I do like kind of the energy of that bickering, but the actual lines I changed, and I think that it works better this way.
How about Zatoichi?
Oh no. I'm not certain Lady Ren is ready for that technique.
I forgot how annoying you are.
I only spoke the truth.
Put this on.
The Jedi Order would not have accepted her. She is not an acceptable candidate. You realize, historically, there have been very few Mandalorians who ever became a Jedi.
I want you to see with more than just your eyes.
I do like how they just kind of ignore Huyang. Again, that's the product of the fact that I, put lines in there that weren't there before. But I felt like it was a good use of kind of the empty space here. And I took those lines from Huyang. Yeah, here, let me try to find it in the show. Yeah, so it happens after this scene with Sabine, which I also cut out, but...
Well, what you said didn't help.
I only spoke the truth. The Jedi Order would not have accepted her. She is not an acceptable candidate.
By their standards.
Standards which were proven over a millennia.
And failed.
You realize, historically, there have been very few Mandalorians who ever became a Jedi.
I like this conversation. It just didn't work for the movie, but I did want to repurpose some of those Huyang lines for this scene.
I forgot how annoying you are.
I only spoke the truth.
Put this on.
The Jedi Order would not have accepted her. She is not an acceptable candidate. You realize, historically, there have been very few Mandalorians who ever became a Jedi.
I want you to...
This part was also, it took me a really long time to figure out how to edit this part together, because what needs to happen is Ahsoka, because now they're gonna work on Zatoichi, and they're going to switch from Sabine practicing with her lightsaber to now they're both going to be using katanas. I need to basically find some way that I can have Ahsoka take the lightsaber away from Sabine and then go across to get a katana and then hand a katana to Sabine and then continue the scene from there. So I found a moment where, again, here's another one that was really difficult of replacing the katana here, especially because it went over her leg here. So I had to kind of create a frame in Photoshop that didn't have this over the top of it, and replaced her leg there. So then this is the original.
I forgot how...
And then this is with my lightsaber change. And I think what really sells this is not only trying to make sure that the lighting matched the rest of the room, especially because this is a reflective surface, the lightsaber. So there's some lights up at the top that I found from the wide shot that I tried to replicate. So that's pointing down. But I also created kind of like a body double of Sabine in 3D. It was super, nothing exact, very, very rudimentary. But I had it be the same, blue color here and everything too, so that when the lightsaber goes behind Sabine, the lighting changes as it would if she was actually holding that lightsaber. And I'm a professional visual effects artist, so these are things that I do for work every day.
Put this on.
The Jedi Order.
So this is one that I'm also really proud of because this was the original where she's grabbing the katana.
Put this on.
The Jedi Order would not.
And then this is with my lightsaber change.
Put this on.
The Jedi Order.
So yeah, again, I did kind of the same thing where I had some rudimentary hands and arms and stuff, and Ahsoka's body and Sabine's body in the actual blender scene, so that you get kind of the accurate reflections here.
Put this on.
The Jedi
on the lightsaber. But this was perfect because she takes the katana from Sabine in this scenario, but it's really just so that she can put on her helmet. So in the show,
It doesn't matter.
I think it does.
Agree.
Here, put this on.
You're joking. I can't see. How am I supposed to fight?
I want you to see with more than just your eyes.
yeah, so she gives her the katana back. So she grabbed the katana from her, so she put on her helmet, then she gives it back, and then she walks over to
now what?
Get her own katana so that they can start their lesson. But in my movie version, I basically, moved that to an earlier part so that she grabs the lightsaber
Put this on.
The Jedi Order would not have accepted her. She is not an acceptable candidate.
And then she goes over and gets the katana for Sabine.
Realize, historically, there have been very few Mandalorians who ever became a Jedi.
I want you to see with more than just your eyes.
And then we just go full into a training kind of montage sequence. Whereas before, we just kind of go into it in the show.
Be still. Listen to my voice. Do you know where I am?
Next to Huyang.
Are you sure?
And so, again, I think this just like was really slow and I just needed the pacing to pick up. So I moved some of that like dialogue into the edit of the montage so that we kind of just get right back into it. Some people have interpreted it as like Sabine and Ahsoka talking to each other like through the Force. Originally, that's not how I interpreted it. I was just kind of editing it like any other kind of training montage where you kind of like hear the master and the apprentice kind of talking about things as it's going. And it, you know, the idea is that you're hearing the dialogue from a different part of the scene or just like putting it on top of this to, you know, keep things moving and make it relevant to what we're seeing. So I didn't intend for it to be like, oh, they're having a Force connection. I think that it's totally fine if you interpret it that way. I think that there is something to be said about that interpretation. I think that it, you know, helps show that maybe Sabine is more Force sensitive than not. And so I think that totally works. It wasn't my intention. I think either way of looking at the scene is fine, whether they're talking about what's happening through the Force or it's just, you know, dialogue from a different portion on top of this. To me, it makes no difference. I think that's, you know, really up to the viewer's interpretation and how that changes the story for you. And, you know, whichever one resonates with you more, I think is the correct interpretation of this exact scene.
Feel my presence.
I can't use the Force. Not like you do. Not like Ezra.
Force resides in all living things, even you. But training and focus are what truly defines someone's success. Be still. Take in all that is around you. Follow my voice. Sense my intention. Anger and frustration are quick to give power, but they also unbalance you. Let's go again.
So this was actually, funny enough, a visual effects shot. So in the original show, Sabine is putting up her helmet here in this shot.
Frustration are quick to give.
And then in this shot, that she says this line.
Frustration are quick to give power.
Sabine is just looking at her. So I kind of had to combine those two shots because I was cutting from this moment where her hand is up on her helmet. So I had to combine those two shots to give you
anger and frustration are quick to give power.
So it's her speaking the lines from this original shot.
Frustration are quick to give power.
And then Sabine's hand from this one.
Frustration are quick to give.
And combined.
Frustration are quick to give power.
Yeah.
But they also unbalance.
So I did a ton of little stuff like that, and I will definitely show you every single time I do something like that. Those are the kinds of things that I like really look at, making sure that the edit flows as nicely as possible. And now we get into the scene with Hera talking about Grand Admiral Thrawn and you know, Senator Xiono being kind of a butthead to her. Yeah, so this section I definitely changed, and I'll show you in the original show how it goes.
Chancellor Mothma, senators.
Hera, you look well. How's young Jason?
Fine, Chancellor. In fact, he's on board. Somewhere.
Causing trouble with Chopper, no doubt.
Most likely.
Forgive me, Madam Chancellor, but if we could just hear the General's report. We're late as it is.
Quite right, Senator Ziono. Hera?
My investigation into the attack on the Vesper led me to this.
Yeah, so this is how it flows in mine, where I cut out some of those unnecessary bits.
Somewhere.
Forgive me, Madam Chancellor. We're late as it is.
Quite right, Senator Ziono.
My investigation.
Right, so we just go right into it. We don't need those extra lines. The few lines that we did get are exactly what we needed to hear to move on to the next part of the scene. I could talk about this for a long time about like all the little things that I changed in this conversation, but I want to move on to kind of some of the bigger stuff. But basically I just tried to improve the flow of the conversation and only keep the necessary stuff. As you can probably tell, that's a recurring theme in the work that I do.
Is it true Aunt Sabine is going to be a Jedi?
Now, where did you hear that?
Chopper told me. I want to be a Jedi.
Yeah, I know you do, Jason.
Yeah, so that I added a track from Rebels. It's from Kevin Kiner, and it's called Goodbye Kanan. I thought that was just like a nice kind of, musical motif to incorporate into this, with Jason there and his father's kind of goodbye theme playing, which I think also speaks to kind of Hera's hesitation to let Jason become a Jedi as well, because she has the trauma with losing his father. So I just thought that was a nice little way to tie those together.
Jason.
And then we go straight into Hera not joining them with the fleet. And then we just get right into kind of the next action piece. But in the show, I'd cut out this whole section with the cup. And so now we get into the Denab system and Seatos. And I definitely cut up some of the moments here. Basically, what I did was kind of just cut out things that made the relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine a little bit more tension. I wanted to kind of take some of that out because, again, I wasn't trying to put too much focus on like this kind of failed relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine. There's not a lot of that in this movie. I honestly think that it's enough that like they are estranged enough from their situation, and I felt it a little bit annoying. And I also, again, like I said, I haven't watched the full Rebels, though I have heard from other people that Ahsoka and Sabine didn't really even have that kind of a relationship in the show. So it was just kind of like a weird choice, I think. For the movie, we didn't really have that kind of time to devote to that strained relationship. I wanted them to have some struggles, but I didn't want it to be like they were annoyed at each other or there was a lot of animosity, which I felt like was very present in these interactions. This part I did change. I sped up a few parts in the space moments, and I cut out a few things that I had a problem with, like...
She's on the wing.
I see her.
The one time I could use your advice.
I feel like it's pretty wild in the show that she's like deflecting these kinds of blaster hits. I just, I don't know. These are like really intense blaster fire. Like the blaster fire from ships are way stronger, at least to me. I don't know. I'm not like huge into like the exact lore, but I would assume that ship fire is way more powerful than blaster fire from like a droid or a small gun or something like that. So for her to like just kind of, deflect them easily and not have it just kind of like hit the lightsaber out of her hands from that kind of force, To me, it was a little unrealistic. Again, we're talking about like battles in space here. So like what really is realistic? There's sound here in space when there's not in actual space. So whatever, maybe very nitpicky, but I did remove her. I basically just kind of have her dodge those blaster fires from the ships. And then just go straight into, jumping and cutting one of the ships in half. Or not in half, cutting the wing off of the ship. Also, I cut out Marok's line of like saying she's on the wing to like Shin clearly can just like see her while she's flying. So just we didn't need that line.
I see her.
So I kind of like skipped this whole area where we think maybe Ahsoka is like lost to space for good or something. So in the show it goes like this.
Ahsoka! Sabine! Did you fix the ship yet?
Get me.
Get ready.
Yeah, so again, that whole kind of section I feel like just slows the action sequence a little too much. So I just go straight into her being saved and we don't have to like make a big thing about it. Then we get into kind of the chase and getting into the atmosphere of Seatos, and then they see the star whales. And I didn't really change too much of this sequence. Same theme as before. I would just kind of cut things that didn't move the flow or interrupted the flow. Yeah, like a line like this, where in the movie it's this.
And complete. Oh, what did I miss?
In the show, it went like this.
And complete. Oh, took my battery back up a while to cycle, I suppose. What did I miss?
I mean, as the audience member, we don't need it spelled out. We figure he's a robot, stuff like this happens with electrical surges, whatever, you know. I don't think anybody was too pressed about that line, you know. I think you'll see the work that I did here in the color correction. I made it a lot warmer. I feel like you can see a lot more. I think I took a lot of the blue in this and desaturated it and kind of wanted the reds to pop more. Huge difference there. So I'm pretty sure I cut out, a whole section that was a little unnecessary here. Yeah, so I see. In the show, now we're on to episode 4, and there's this whole section where they're kind of repairing stuff, and she's like, oh, where's Ahsoka? And she's like, oh, it's out there, but it didn't add anything to the story, so just went straight to it. Yeah, like you can see my color correction difference there. I just preferred more of this like warmer tone, which I think really brings out the reds, really lets you see more of the detail in the image. Yeah, so in the show, their conversation
Face a difficult choice. Which is?
Yeah, so like this line from Sabine, which is, I think again it just kind of like adds to the animosity of the characters where they're like withholding information, but also it's just like unnecessary. Her facial expression already says that line.
I fear we face a difficult choice. If we can't make the journey to find Ezra.
So now it's just like, it's almost like Ahsoka's kind of speaking her thoughts out loud, and Sabine is just kind of there listening to it instead of like Ahsoka sitting there like withholding information until Sabine asks about it. You know, I think it's just like if I was editing the script, I would have like taken that line out in the script because I would have been like, let's just have Ahsoka keep talking. You know, we can have some close up of Sabine. That line is totally unnecessary and adds nothing to it. So there were a lot of moments in the movie where I just like took lines like that out because it's like it interrupts the flow and it just doesn't. It's completely unnecessary.
I fear we face a difficult choice. If we can't make the journey to find Ezra, then no one should.
Let's find that ground base.
Yeah, so I think that's like a great flow of events, and her performance there was really nice. And in the show,
then no one should.
It won't come to that.
It might have already.
He'd be stranded out there. Maybe this time for good.
Better that than allowing Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire.
I like it better that kind of Ahsoka as a master gives her a little bit of the information, but isn't like trying to shove it down her throat, like what this all means and why, you know. And I think it also makes more sense than why later on, after she thinks that Ahsoka is dead, she's willing to do the wrong thing, which is to give the map to the bad guys. Then Huyang comes down the stairs and asks if everything's all right. Ahsoka's kind of sensing that there's something going on. And then in the original episode, we cut from this to, I believe, just another scene. Yeah. So in this, he goes from, you know, fixing the ship. Yeah, we see the HK droid just watching and sitting and then walks away. And then we have this scene. A lot of it is just kind of like an update. The bad guys are like, okay, we found them. What do you want to do next? Kind of thing. And it's just like when the bad guys find the good guys, they move in. We don't need to see exactly what the bad guys are thinking. We can pretty much guess what they're thinking, which is we have to stop the good guys from trying to stop us. So I just cut straight to, well, obviously they were found out and we're into the next thing. And then we have this whole sequence of them fighting, which I really didn't change much of. I don't really think I touched any of this. Yeah, so this was definitely another moment that I changed.
Stay together. You always did better that way, in my opinion.
So that's my movie. This is what happened in the show.
Stay together. You always did better that way, in my opinion.
We better get moving.
Together.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, so again, it was just one of those things that disrupted the energy of the scene. And I just like them looking around, being pleased, and moving on. In the movie, this is the very first time that Sabine is interacting with one of the bad guys. I think this fits a little better this way. I know that a lot of, you know, there were people that really liked the fight that Shin and Sabine had in the beginning. It was fine, but also with Sabine being super rusty, especially, you know, in the show, we learn in like the hospital sequence that like she was barely keeping up with her training or anything with that like that. It's just like kind of unbelievable that she was able to take on Shin. And I know that, you know, people are saying, oh, Shin could have just been playing with her, you know, just stuff like that. And for the most part, I do believe that Shin's character would be playing around. Realistically, you know, Shin being a Force user and Sabine, you know, not being very Force sensitive at this point in the show or the movie, I think Shin would have destroyed her either way. I think that Sabine is a powerful Mandalorian. She doesn't have a jetpack, which could definitely help the situation. And we saw, obviously, with Jango Fett and Mace Windu that it is, even with a jetpack, going up against a Jedi as just being a Mandalorian is not the best thing. That unbelievable thing aside, let's just, you know, pretend that maybe Shin is not powerful enough or Sabine is just really, really powerful with her skills with a lightsaber, even though she's not super force sensitive yet. I do like this moment being the first time that they meet up. I think it just like the energy is better, and also having removed, it's not like there was any interaction in this moment that, made it seem like they had interacted before, like Shin never like questions how she's alive. She obviously ran the lightsaber through her. So she, Shin probably would have been like, whoa, 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 it's you? But obviously none of that happens in their interaction. So this really totally can serve as the very first time they interact and meet. I did change a few things, again, just to make sure that the flow was going in the right direction. So here's how it goes in my movie.
Going somewhere?
And this is what it was like in the show.
Going somewhere?
So I know that Dave Filoni was going for this kind of like samurai build-up, and I think that works for a show form and, kind of bringing a new style into Star Wars. To me, especially in this movie where I'm trying to just make sure that the energy is always going forward, this moment was just so long. So I just wanted to speed it up. Plus that little hop that Shin does, I just was like, it felt so silly, so we don't even need it. And then we get into this scene talking about the calculations, and if they're just a little off, then we go into the void, establishing that they're starting up. I believe this was a rearranged scene because I think in the show this happens before the fight starts, but I felt that this was better here. They're so close. They're so close to stopping them at the perfect time, but we have all of these fights that we have to get through in order to get to where we need to go. Also, this is another moment where like the action, I switched up a little bit and like, truncated some of the reaction time so that it felt faster. So this is what happens in my movie. So like Sabine barely has time on the floor before Shin comes in to cut her up. In the show, Shin takes a long time before she goes to kill Sabine, who now is like winded and on the ground. So easy prey. So we can just cut out that reaction time and make it happen a lot faster. Makes more sense to me. And then now Ahsoka slices Marok.
Go! Get the map!
And then in the show, I think it's just like slower.
Go! Get the map! Got this.
Again, that's just kind of a moment we don't really need with the urgency too, and her like already telling Ahsoka, go get the map. I think it implies already she's got this, and Ahsoka has to make a really quick decision to just move forward. I cut like a line from Shin here.
You will regret this decision.
Again, it was just one of those things that was, just took up more time than needed, and her facial expression already says that line. It's powerful enough. We don't need the bad guys to spell out their plans or whatever. Like, we know that Sabine made a big choice to stay here and fight Shin. We know that that's a, potentially deadly choice. We don't need Shin to say it outright. It just kind of almost takes away from the performance and from the energy of the moment. So Yeah, easy peasy, you know, takes up way less time and I think is more powerful. So this is another conversation where I definitely cut things out and rearrange things just to keep things moving.
Surely that must leave a mark. Is that why you walked away? Abandoned him?
I'm not here to discuss my past.
The only reason I'm here is to secure the future.
And you find starting another war necessary?
I'm not starting a war.
Yeah, so in the show, this is kind of how this goes.
Surely that must leave a mark. Is that why you walked away? Abandoned him?
So there's all this empty space right
I'm
here.
not here to discuss my past.
This conversation just kind of dragged on in a lot of parts, so.
It is an unfortunate evil, but speaks to a greater truth. One must destroy in order to create.
So I like this shot of Balin taking his lightsaber off of his belt here. But in the show, it's just like he's just not saying anything, or he's saying something different here.
How inevitable.
So I took his body from that and his head from the line where he actually says this line and pasted it on top to create this.
One must destroy in order to create.
And I had the fight just kind of start quick, which in the show does not happen like that. Again, we just have this long process of getting into a fight. I totally understand that it was a deliberate choice, especially like trying to channel samurai films. It just, for a movie version where we gotta like keep things moving, doesn't work. And it's kind of exhausting now that I'm watching it again like this. Like, I think this has been going on for like a minute already. So we have this little sequence, and then she walks back over to the same spot she was just in, and then now we kind of are back to the beginning here. So what did we do? I don't know. Then we just move right into the actual fight. So again, this is what happens in my movie.
One must destroy in order to create.
So we get right into things. So yeah, this is a moment that I changed to. I got some suggestions from my Discord server while I was editing that it would be nice to see Shin possess a little bit more of the dark side powers. And I like that idea. And what I also did too was I made sure that I didn't add any more darkness in Balin's character, because I think that, especially since he was raised as a Jedi, I think he is definitely closer to the light side. But I think Shin has her own relationship with the dark and light, and being trained by somebody that already is skeptical of, you know, the Jedi and what they stood for and everything. I think she has a little bit of a darker edge to her. So in these key moments, it was great for her to have like kind of these Sith eyes. She's channeling the dark side more, you know? So great suggestion from my Discord server, and I ultimately agreed with it, and that's why I put it in the movie here.
You have no power.
This is the eyes that I put on her, and this is what it was before. It is a little hard to tell because of obviously the color correction that I've done, but you can see her eyes pop there a little bit. So this was before.
You have no power.
And then this is with the eyes.
You have no power.
And it was really quick, but I also did add it to this frame right before she blocks. And to me, that like kind of wakes her up almost. It brings her out of that, you know, Sith energy moment. So that's when we go back to it. She no longer has Sith eyes. You know, she's like surprised. And then Ahsoka sees Shin here. And I definitely edited the flow a little bit on this scene. In the show, this is how it goes.
Get them back!
Sabine.
Yeah, so I just kind of quickened some of that up. Only really gave the necessary reactions for us to understand what's going on and keep moving, you know?
Get them back!
Here's a moment that I really like that I did from the movie.
I give you my word. No harm will come to you. Sabine, you will be reunited with your friend.
So I like this kind of urgency where like Balin already is asking for the map while he's talking, and I believe in this show it happens a little differently.
Sabine, you will be reunited with your friend. It's the only way. Do it for Ezra.
Yeah, so I personally like the way it plays out in the movie better. I just think that urgency is put up a notch, as well as I think his tactic for getting Sabine to do what he wants. I don't like when he says it's the only way. And I know that that's very like Sith-like and very manipulative. But I just feel like because he has a background also as being a Jedi, I think his manipulation tactic is different, especially since he's just looked into Sabine's mind. He would understand what would be best for Sabine. And I don't think threatening her with it's the only way really does it. I think what does it for her is, you know, do it for Ezra. So that's why I rearranged it a little bit and cut out a few of his lines in this part.
Come with me. Willingly.
So he's giving more of a friend approach
I
to
give you
it.
my word. No harm will come to you.
And he's already reaching out.
Sabine, you will be reunited with your friend.
Yeah. So he's like trying to kind of do the friend approach. Like, hey, let me take that off your hands. I'll get you to go where you need to go. You know, there's no like, I think this makes more sense to why Sabine would give it up too. Because it really, in her head, it's feeling more like, I can trust this guy. I can trust this guy and he's not going to do me harm. Cutting out some of the things that I did really establishes that feeling for Sabine. That like, yes, he's being a little pushy, but everything he's saying is in a way that like resonates with me and feels almost safe. Obviously, she still struggles with it, and I wanted to make sure that came across. But I think that this version of the events feels more powerful to me.
Do it for Ezra.
Yeah, and I think that's what does it for her. I also added this undertone dramatic note to it. I think the silence in the show is also fine. I really liked having this long silence and then like a noise to symbolize like that kind of the weight of the situation. So I really like that. In the show, it doesn't have that. It just... So it has like not quite the oomph that I was going for. I do like it as a different interpretation of the moment too. You know, I think that there's a power in like some of the craziest decisions ever made in history with so much silence behind it. I think that there's something very powerful there. I just also was going for something different where we want the audience to feel the weight of it. Having a deep note with it to accompany that decision felt more in line with what I was trying to do with this scene. And it is kind of hard to tell, but I also added Sith eyes for Shin. So I know it's hard to tell because of the color correction that I did, but her eyes do not have the Sith yellow there, obviously. And also here too. And as soon as she lets go of Sabine, I have the eyes transition back into her regular eyes. Also, what's really nice is that like in feature films, the halfway point is a moment where usually like something changes dramatically in the story. This is like almost exactly halfway through the movie. is when Sabine hands over the map. It's about an hour in, and the movie is 2 hours and a half, so it's pretty close to that middle point. If we go to the exact middle point, that would be what, 1 hour and 15 minutes in, which would be this conversation with Anakin before the World Between Worlds section that I re-edited. So that's also a good turning point too. But I feel like this is probably the real turning point, which is a little bit before the halfway point of the movie. Then there's this scene in the show where Hera is disobeying orders and she's gonna go anyways to help Sabine and Ahsoka, and she's bringing her son and stuff. And this just, if I had included this, it would have interrupted kind of the action sequences that had already started. We didn't need to know exactly the circumstance in which they got there and everything. We don't need that. We just need to know that they've gotten in. So I think it works fine that, like,
Can you send assistance? Over.
Copy, Huyang. We're already here.
they're already here. Boom. And then we move into, just getting the Eye of Sion into orbit and, getting out of here. Also, this is something that I changed where it took significantly less time for the star map to break in half. I felt like in the show, a lightsaber is very strong, I would say. Having it take so long for the lightsaber to like actually pierce the star map in half. Like, it's very dramatic, but it just was like, it felt very unrealistic to me, him like stabbing the lightsaber through this tiny little sphere of metal, that it would just take so long. So obviously, boom.
No one will be following us.
And then we get into them coming up here and getting ready to make the jump, and I shortened this a lot, I believe. And then the fleet comes up.
That's a tremendous surge in power.
They're gonna jump.
And I really liked this moment. I took, well, let's see how it goes in the show.
6 incoming New Republic craft. They are obstructing our path.
Hera.
Yeah, so I took that Hera and I put it in a more dramatic point, I think. I liked kind of the chaos of like everything's happening at once, and Hera was the very last thing, and to really give that emphasis on like Sabine making that final realization that her friend was there coming to save her.
Hera.
Yeah, again, all this just takes so long.
Ignore them.
There's like no urgency to the
Engage
situation.
The hyperdrive.
Carson, are you reading this?
That's a tremendous surge in power.
It's the hyperdrive. They're gonna jump.
So I liked this new sequence of events where I also cut out a few moments just to quicken things up and not spell it out so much to the audience.
That's a tremendous surge in power.
They're gonna jump.
I took this shot and gave it a nice like pinkish purplish hue and upped the exposure so it looks like, the room is filling up with light. I just did some color correction here. Yeah. Then we move into, Jason saying, "I have a bad feeling." Classic Star Wars line. Huyang looking for Ahsoka and Sabine. And then we get into the World Between Worlds. I think that this is a really great place to stop for the movie, kind of in the like halfway moment. I will film the second half another time. I really love that I've been able to share this with you and a lot of my process here too, because I feel like sometimes I'm just like editing into the void, like a lot of the cuts that I make like just go unnoticed. That's kind of my hope, it's good that a lot of the edits are unnoticed, because that means that I did my job, and that means that the story flows well and doesn't take you out of it. I never want to call attention to the cuts that I've made, so it is fun that I get to like kind of go through this and show you even some of the most minute things that I've changed. So yeah, very, very excited for this. You know, make sure to give this a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you are excited for part 2 of this, where I get into, like, here, I'll show you a little sneak preview, and I'm sure what a lot of people want to see coming up in part 2 is my Malachor sequence, which I've spent weeks on. And this is what it looked like before, you know, so I really replaced everything in here. Yeah, I created that whole set from scratch. Again, getting ahead of myself. We will talk about that in part 2. Very excited to get into that and all the crazy stuff that comes up in part 2. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in part 2.